What's up, guys? This is Tidemaster Tim, and today I want to talk about the Nintendo 64 Classic. Now, the Nintendo 64 has a ton of amazing games on it. I mean, you could probably take the top 10 or top 20 Nintendo 64 games and compare it with pretty much any other system's top 10 or top 20 games. It would be right on par. It would be right there, just as good. And so, Nintendo has a chore of making sure they put the perfect games on the Nintendo 64 Classic. The games that they know everyone would love. And there's some obvious choices. Some games are just definitely going to be there. They just are. I mean, it's obvious choices. Nintendo do have that. They do have some obvious choices for it. But there's also some games that are not going to make it onto the Nintendo 64 Classic. Whether it's because maybe they weren't that great, or because whatever other reasons, Nintendo won't put them on the Classic. They could have been great games, but there's only so many slots to fill. And these are going to be a few games that I want to discuss today that I don't think is going to make it to the Nintendo 64 Classic that, I really liked. But they probably won't make it, unfortunately. So, let's dive in. So the first game that I want to talk about that I don't think will make it onto the Nintendo 64 Classic is Majora's Mask. Now, for me, my personal favorite out of the Legend of Zelda games on the Nintendo 64 is Majora's Mask. And I know that there's a lot of you out there that feel the same way. Majora's Mask is amazing. It's a really great game. I have a ton of great memories playing the game. I love the atmosphere. I love the ability to, change your masks and gain different abilities and powers that way, and so to me, Majora's Mask is actually the preferred game. I would prefer Majora's Mask to be on the Nintendo 64 Classic. However, knowing Nintendo, they won't want to put too many games in the same series onto the console. And so for me, I think that even though a lot of people really love Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time is considered to be the more popular of the two games. And so, Nintendo will most likely choose to put the more popular one on the Nintendo 64 Classic. But, which to me is a bummer because, with Majora's Mask, I prefer the atmosphere and everything to that over Ocarina of Time. Not that there's anything wrong with Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is an amazing game. Just my own personal preference, I prefer Majora's Mask. And I know there's a lot of you out there that also prefer Majora's Mask. But because of those reasons, I feel like Nintendo will opt to put Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64 Classic instead of Majora's Mask. So, unfortunately, I think we're going to miss Majora's Mask for the N64 Classic. Now, the first game I want to talk about is Ogre Battle: Person of Lordly Caliber. For me, if you know anything about me, you would know that I love strategy RPGs, that I love tactical RPGs. Those are amazing to me, which you don't know anything about me because I haven't really made very many videos, so you don't really know. But if you did know, you would know I love those sorts of games. And Ogre Battle: Person of Lordly Caliber is sort of one of those games. It's a little bit different, but I love things like Disgaea Final Fantasy Tactics. This is a little different, but it still scratches that same sort of itch. It's kind of more like a mix between something like a tactics game and Civilization, something like that. It's got some real-time strategy elements thrown in, with that tactical RPG style. With this game, you can create your units of characters. You send them out to go attack some other bases. People are coming to attack you. It's got a great storyline. It's got good music. It's just a really good game for the Nintendo 64. And, unfortunately, I feel like Nintendo definitely won't put this game on the Nintendo 64 Classic. While it's something that I would love to see on the Nintendo 64 Classic, just Nintendo, they're just not going to do it. I'm pretty sure they just won't do it, unfortunately. But yeah, I would love to see a strategy style RPG on the Nintendo 64 Classic, but, and Ogre Battle would be that, but it's probably not going to happen, unfortunately. The next game that's not going to make it to the Nintendo 64 Classic is Jet Force Gemini. Now, I enjoyed this game. I have a lot of good memories of this game, even though I know for a fact it can be very frustrating and sometimes time-consuming, since there's a lot of backtracking to do sometimes in the game. But the game is awesome. It's a third-person shooter, sci-fi, set in the future. You've got three characters. Luna, Vela, and Lupus, I believe. Luna. I'm not sure on the names 100%, but I think it's Luna, Vela, and Lupus. But anyways, those are your three characters. It's a guy, a girl, and their dog. And they each got different abilities that they can do to, you know, go through stages. But that leads to the problem of you have to play through each stage with, you know, more than one character a lot of times to get everything. And you have to get everything, at least all of the tribals, in order to even beat the game. So there's where the frustration comes in. But the game is very enjoyable. It looks great. It sounds great. So, I mean, there's a lot to like about it. But, you know, it does have some problems holding it back. And, you know, it's not the best rare game that could be on the Nintendo 64 Classic. And that alone will probably be what holds it back. Because there's better rare games on the Nintendo 64. So, Nintendo will probably opt to choose one of those better games as opposed to Jet Force Gemini. And unfortunately, that's why I think that Jet Force Gemini won't make it to the Nintendo 64 Classic. Another game that I don't think will make it to the Nintendo 64 Classic is Bomberman 64. Now, when I was a kid, I had a friend of mine who owned this game, and I would go over to his house all the time. We'd play some WWE, and we'd play some Bomberman. We would take turns playing the adventure mode, or we would play the multiplayer mode, or we would play WWE, and I would always play as Rey Mysterio for some reason. Don't at me. But Bomberman 64 to me was awesome. The multiplayer mode, which isn't anywhere near as good as the other Bomberman games, multiplayer mode just has a nostalgic feeling to me when I play it that just reminds me of my childhood and going over to one of my good friends' house and playing Bomberman 64 a ton. And like I said, we also would take turns playing through adventure mode on the game, and you know, it was just a lot of fun for me. Unfortunately, I don't think this game will make it onto the Nintendo 64 Classic just because the game is just, in general, it's just okay. There's so many more games that are so much better that could easily make it to the Nintendo 64 Classic, and I just think Bomberman 64 is not one of those games. Another game that won't make it to the Nintendo 64 Classic, probably for very obvious reasons, is Turok 2: Seeds of Evil. Now, this game is awesome. It's so fun to play. It's got amazing music. You're running through the game, shooting all kinds of awesome weaponry that you can unlock in the game. You know, this game is really where it's at, man. If you haven't played Turok or Turok 2 on the Nintendo 64, you need to go back and play it because it's amazing games. Now, this is a great first-person shooter, and like I said, it's got a variety of weapons. Now, this is a game I didn't own as a kid. Again, it's another game that a friend of mine owned, but I went over there all the time. We played the game all the time, and it had a really fun multiplayer mode, at least to me, that I remember. I really haven't played it in a while, but what I remember was it was great. And I would always, you know, I always played as the characters that got on everybody's nerves in the games, like, you know, GoldenEye, I played as Oddjob, so yeah, I'm that guy. Whoops. And so I always played as the Raptor in multiplayer mode. Again, I was that guy. But, you know, that's just me. But the game is great. I mean, you know, you really can't go wrong playing it. But it most likely won't be on the Nintendo 64 Classic because it had a mature rating. The Turok games were mature rated, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo's going to want to keep that rating down for the Nintendo 64 Classic so that more people have the opportunity to buy the console. So, you know, those reasons are why Turok 2: Seeds of Evil will not make it to the Nintendo 64 Classic. Alright guys, I think that's about it for this list. You know, I didn't want to make it too long of a list. I know there's going to be a ton of games that are not going to make it onto the system that I want to be on the system. I know there's going to be several games that you guys want to be on the system that's not going to make it to the system. But I know that Nintendo's going to pick some great games for this, and I know I won't be disappointed. But what do you guys think? Do you think that, you know, there's some of the games that you want to see on the system that aren't going to make it? Do you think, you know, what games do you think will make it to the system? Or do you think any of the ones that I chose might actually sneak onto the system? Just let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. Also, if you want to see another video where I talked about what games I want to see on the PlayStation Classic, click right around in here somewhere. I'll post a video there, or the link to the video there, talking about that. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. I've been Tidemaster Tim, and I'm bailing out.